As at the time of this review, for the last nearly 40 years, the Metal Gear series has kept us enthralled with tactical espionage action-adventure, with each game in the main series building upon the last and pushing things just a little further. Created by Hideo Kojima, the Metal Gear series is one of the first things that comes to mind when you think of games developed and published by Konami. While 16-Bit and I have covered Metal Gear games in the past, today we're going to step back a bit and go back to where things started in a sense with the original Metal Gear. Not quite the original on the Microsoft MSX2 computer, and certainly not the NES iteration of the game, but today we're going to be looking at the Metal Gear port on the Commodore Amiga released in 2021 by Hoffman. Fun fact, an Amiga version of Metal Gear was teased back in the day in a magazine, though it never materialised. Ports of the game, whether it be the NES version, which was quite different and developed without Kojima's involvement, Commodore 64, MS-DOS, which are all based on the NES port, and even the original version of the MSX2 release, all had details missing from them, and the original game would only be available to enjoy as it was intended in the West when the game got an updated translation and was included with Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence on the PlayStation 2, and the HD collection later on. While I will be drawing comparisons, I'll generally be comparing it to the original MSX version and the PC re-release from 2020. Of course, with Amiga games, I'll also cover the game on original hardware, so I've played through the game on a Commodore Amiga 500 with its keyboard, though you can play the game with an Amiga CD32 controller. This review will not only double as a review on the Amiga port, but also on the original Metal Gear as a game. Metal Gear takes place in the year 1995, established in Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake's manual, and has you play the role of Foxhound operative Solid Snake infiltrating Outer Heaven, a fortified military base located 200 kilometers north of Galsburg, a fictional region of South Africa, in order to destroy the bipedal walking tank Metal Gear, as well as rescue prisoners captured by the enemy, including Foxhound agent Grey Fox. Supporting Solid Snake in his mission is his commanding officer Big Boss, and architect turned resistance leader Kyle Schneider. Can Snake make it through Outer Heaven, rescue everyone, destroy Metal Gear and discover the identity of the mysterious leader of Outer Heaven? More importantly, is this port any good? Find out in The Good. Addressing the efforts of the port first, I really do like the enhancements made to the Amiga port as well as its overall performance, even on original hardware. The game offers multiple language options and a choice between the original English script from the MSX2 version, complete with misspellings and cut content, or an English remixed fan-translated script which restores the cut content and tidied up the script. I suspect there's possible legal issues around importing the official English retranslation when the MSX2 version of Metal Gear was added as a bonus with Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. Nonetheless, the remix script does a pretty good job. The game also offers a 50Hz or 60Hz mode, and I didn't notice any slowdown or sprite flickering while playing through the game. Additional transceiver portraits were added in, and the characters, including Solid Snake, who was the only character to have an official portrait in the original game, were designed to resemble their portraits from the game's MSX2 manual, though admittedly I think Solid Snake's new portrait in this port sort of looks like Todd Howard. Some of the portraits for important characters also appear in scenes where Snake meets them too. Additional sound effects were added in, and these are noticed when you hear grunts from enemies you take out, and even bosses too. But one of the best things I liked about this port is the rearranged music. You can choose to have the original MSX2 music emulated, or you can listen to an enhanced arrangement composed by Hoffman, which I personally think sounds great, especially the game's alert theme. A lot of care has been put into this port, and I'm really impressed on how well it runs and the enhancements made to it. For a game originally released back in 1987, it's quite impressive how much content the game has. As Snake infiltrates Outer Heaven, there's a multitude of items for him to pick up, and these items all play a key part in his mission. If you excuse the pun, as a large number of these items are card keys. These include a gas mask to navigate rooms filled with poisonous gas, a bomb blast suit to resist the wind on the rooftop of one of the buildings, a compass to pass through a scorpion-infested desert to reach one of the buildings, and even the classic cardboard box which Snake can use to avoid detection from enemy soldiers or cameras providing he stays still under it, to name a few. There's even different levels of detection determined by how many exclamation marks appear when Snake is spotted or is detected. A single exclamation mark is a low-level alert, and Snake needs to simply leave the screen he's in or defeat all enemies currently in a room. But if Snake gets a double exclamation mark by being caught by certain enemies, a camera, triggering an infrared laser, or firing weapons, enemies will continue to appear even if Snake moves to another room, and Snake will generally need to kill all of the enemies and their reinforcements before it will go away. Snake can also get several weapons throughout the game, and these weapons can be used to not only take out the soldiers and guard dogs in the base, but also the mercenary bosses and vehicles that will stand in his way. You can also get a silencer for some weapons so that they don't trigger an alert when Snake fires them. Snake will also get support from Big Boss and Resistance leader Schneider, with the latter helping Snake find certain items. By rescuing prisoners and increasing your rank, Snake will be given the frequencies for Resistance member Diane, who will help Snake by revealing what most of the bosses are weak to, and Resistance member Jennifer, who is instrumental in helping Snake procure key items to progress, but will only help him if he is at 4 stars, which is achieved by rescuing prisoners throughout the base and not shooting them. Rescuing prisoners and increasing Snake's rank will also benefit him, as Snake's health will increase as he ranks up, and he will be able to carry more ammo for his weapons and rations to restore his health. Prisoners can also give Snake hints on where to go next and what items he'll be needing for certain things later on. The buildings themselves are quite large and a lot of the rooms are locked, so Snake will need to find the appropriate card key to open them. The game has quite a lot of content for its time, and if you're familiar with the newer games, you can certainly see where a lot of the parallels are drawn with this game. And while it's not the first stealth game, you can certainly see how this game helped pioneer the genre. However, the Amiga port of the game isn't entirely perfect, so let's discuss what I didn't like in the bad. While the gameplay itself is pretty smooth, there were times where the game got unresponsive, particularly right after leaving a room. A good example is early on in the game where Snake obtains his first set of remote-controlled missiles after unlocking a room using card key 2. When leaving the room, there's a security camera just under Snake making its way up, and on the other side of the room there's a soldier making his way up to the top part of the room where Snake needs to go in order to leave the room. Because of this small delay, I've often found myself unable to move up to the top of the room in time before the camera detects me, or I can move right up to the top as soon as the enemy soldier stops and looks in my direction, triggering an alert. Thankfully, this was the only part of the game which really did this, so it's a very minor issue at the end of the day, but is only present in the Amiga version. I never came across this issue when I was playing the MSX2 original, or the HD Collection version, or even the port on Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. The only other issue I have, and this is based on the game as opposed to the port, is that the game can be quite vague about things at times. Metal Gear eventually becomes a process of trial and error, as Snake can come across challenges and traps that aren't really elaborated too much on. Some of these traps are inconveniences, such as when Snake gets into the back of a truck and gets sent very far back in the base, or having certain elevators only going in one direction, becoming a problem if Snake accidentally goes to the wrong floor, to Fatal, where Snake falls down a hole that opens up below him or runs into mines without having the mine detector equipped. Just to be even meaner, there are situations where Snake is intentionally misled to a couple of these traps, so you do need to think fast and know when information is correct. Checkpoints are few and far between, often in elevators or when Snake is going between buildings 1 to 3, and although there is a save feature, you will load up from the last checkpoint in the game, and anything you had obtained from that checkpoint, even if you saved after getting them, will not be in your inventory, leading you to replay portions of the game. You can get around this by simply going to the checkpoint after getting the items, but there are certain areas where Snake will be detected or in danger immediately after leaving a checkpoint area. However, in saying that, there is an addictive and satisfying feeling when you discover these things, and you remember that those hazards are there as you replay that part of the game and get past them. It really does keep you on your toes. I have nothing else to complain about, so let's wrap things up with the opinion. As a game, the original Metal Gear for the MSX2 is a marvel for its time, and I think the gameplay still holds up today. The game has a lot of content and is full of surprises, tricks and traps to keep you entertained for an afternoon if you go into the game blind. The Amiga port of the game is very impressive and stays true to the MSX2 original while adding its own flair to make it unique. Hoffman has done an excellent job in programming the game and rearranging the music, which I had a blast listening to, and Tony Galvez has done a great job with the additional character graphics. Even if you've played Metal Gear before and or are very familiar with the franchise's plot, the Amiga version of the game is well worth picking up and playing through purely on how well it's been ported, and if you don't have an Amiga or aren't bothered setting up an emulator for one, then never fear, Hoffman's working on a port for the Sega Mega Drive/Genesis at the time of this review, so check that out when it's done. Here's hoping we may see a port of Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake for the Amiga one day, because if you think Metal Gear was impressive, 2 takes it up a notch. Though in saying that, the assembly and porting of it would be an absolute nightmare of how big it is. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Metal Gear for the Commodore Amiga Todd Howard Solid Snake out of 10. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to check out some of our other videos and subscribe for more. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and our Facebook page. Once again, thank you for watching.